This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, October 16th, 1968, the one salute that you see before you changed the way things were in the Olympics and all that. It's the 200 meter. It happened during the 200 meters of the Olympics. It was a huge event. So during the heats, John Carlos easily won his in 20.54 seconds, while his teammate Tommy Smith won his heat easily 20.37 seconds. In the quarterfinals, John Carlos won his quarterfinal thing. The legendary Harry Jerome for Canada didn't do so well. Tommy Smith won his quarterfinal in 20.28 seconds. In the semifinals, John Carlos won his heat with Peter Norman, of Australia, Mike Frey of Jamaica, and Roger Baumbach of France also qualifying for the big show. And in the other semifinal, Tommy Smith won his with Evan Robbins of the Trinidad, Larry Questad of the U.S., and Jochen Eigerher of Germany qualifying for the final. So it's down to 8 guys. It was a fast race, and Tommy Smith, for however good he was, kicked it up a notch, putting it in 19.83 seconds, making him the world record holder and doing it under 20 seconds, which was amazing. Peter Norman of Australia took second at 20.06 seconds, and US's John Carlos took third, 20.1. Roberts of Trinidad took fourth, Baumbach took fifth, Questad sixth, Frey seventh, Eichhorn eighth. So, this was it. So, the three of them went. So, Smith, Carlos, and Norman would get their medals. The two American athletes received their medals shoeless, but wearing black socks to represent black poverty. Smith wore a black scarf around his neck for black pride. Carlos had his tracksuit top unzipped to show solidarity with all blue-collar workers in the U.S. and wore a necklace of beads, which were people who were lynched and thrown off the side of the boats in the Middle Passage. Peter Norman also wore a Olympic Project for Human Rights badge as well. Anyway, both American athletes intended to bring black gloves, but Carlos forgot his, so it was just both of them wearing one glove. And so the Star Spangled Banner played. Smith and Carlos put their heads bowed and lifted their fists in the air. But the crowd was not too happy. They booed them. Smith would say, "If I win, I'm American, not a black American. But if I did something bad, then they would say I'm a Negro. We are black, and we are proud of being black. Black America will understand what we did tonight." So everyone was doing all that. Unfortunately, Avery Brundage, the IOC president, was not too pleased with that. He deemed it as a domestic political statement unfit for the international forum. So he ordered Smith and Carlos be suspended from the U.S. team and banned from the Olympic Village. The U.S. Olympic Committee disagreed with it, but after Brundage offered to ban the U.S. track team, then they were expelled and all that. The IOC did not force Smith and Carlos to return their medals, although they could have. But they said that it was a deliberate and violent breach of the fundamental principles of the Olympic sport. The only problem with Avery Brundage was that he made no objections against Nazi salutes during the Berlin Olympics, even though he could have. He said that Nazi salute was acceptable in a competition of nations, while the athlete salute was not of a nation and therefore unacceptable. Unfortunately, Brundage was kind of a Nazi sympathizer, even though he was part Jewish, which didn't make sense. The worst part is that Brundage basically was more of an amateur thing. Okay, yeah, professional athletes, but he turned a blind eye to a few things, and that's why he's kind of a cunt, in my opinion. Regardless, Smith and Carlos were largely ostracized. Time magazine wrote "Faster, Higher, Stronger" is the motto, but "Angrier, Nastier, Uglier" is the scene in Mexico City last week. So basically, the families could receive death threats, and Brent Musburger, who actually was a writer for a Chicago paper before rising to prominence, said that Smith and Carlos were a couple of black-skinned stormtroopers who were ignorable, juvenile, and unimaginative. Tommy Smith did continue in track and field. He even played for the Cincinnati Bengals and became assistant professor of physical education at Oberlin College. So he's a public speaker. John Carlos actually tied the 100-yard dash world record the following year. He tried pro football and could have tried for Philadelphia. He actually played one season with the Montreal Alouettes. I did not know that. So John Carlos was in Montreal Alouettes. Nice. But he fell apart hard times in the 70s. His wife committed suicide, leading him to a period of depression. However, he got out of the depression by helping Los Angeles land the 1984 Summer Olympics, and he was named part of the organizing committee. And it did pretty well. The 84 Summer Olympics were great. He works as a counselor at Palm Springs High School as of 2012. And in 2008, they finally got their due, getting an ESPY award, the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, for honoring their action. Unfortunately, Australia was not too kind to Peter Norman, despite the fact that this was an American problem, not an Australian problem. He was reprimanded by his country's authorities and ostracized. A lot of people were upset when he could have competed in the 72 200 meters at the Olympics. He beat the qualifying time, but he was not sent. Sydney refused to have him take part in anything to do with the Olympics. And the Americans actually stepped in and said, hey, you know what? You want this Peter Norman guy and all that. Peter Norman passed away in 2006. Both Smith and Carlos were pallbearers at his funeral. And the Australian House of Representatives finally, in 2012, formally passed apology to Norman, saying that the gesture was a moment of heroism and all that. The Australian Olympic Committee in 2018 gave him the Order of Merit, saying that they made a mistake. So anyway, there were a couple of things and all that. San Jose State University, where both Carlos and Smith trained and went to university there, honored them by a 22-foot high statue of their victory salute. Anyway, the statue has both Smith and Carlos's things, first and third place. Second place podium, there's nothing of Peter Norman so that people can stand on the podium. In fact, Peter Norman said that his space should be left empty so that visitors can feel what it felt. The bronze figures are shoeless, but there are two shoes at the base of the monument. So it's kind of amazing and all of that. That's a nice statue and all of that. So lots of murals. They talked about music and all of that. So yeah, the Black Power salute was huge. However, in 1972, there was a gesture made by Wayne Collette and Vince Matthews, and they got banned because of that. But it wasn't as powerful as the one in 1968, although the issue still plagues everybody. Even in 2022, it still plagues people about the plight of black people around the world. Just sad. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.